We're going to talk about, wow, so there is a fireside chat that's coming up, which is going to talk about, all right, moonlighting, the side hustling. Is it the new normal? Is India Inc. ready for it? Wow. I mean, this is something that I personally didn't want to miss being a part of, this discussion. Now, very quickly, on the 1st of December, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say the Merriam-Webster dictionary sort of declared gaslighting as a word of the year as it searches for it sort of increased manifold by 1740 times, right? 1740 times. Now, in September 22, the term moonlighting is trending on Google seriously in India and has the maximum number of searches compared to anywhere else in the world. Now, with so much of interest, we had to keep this as a part of the agenda, Hannah, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it is apt that we learn more about it and find out when a point has been really made that employees are restricted from taking on 2 jobs. CEOs and board members continue to sit on the board of several companies and have diversified streams of income. So the rise of this gig economy encouraged people, to moonlight after work to make sure they make those extra bucks on the side. And maybe or maybe not why. The discussion came to India when COVID sort of essentially brought, that job uncertainty as we talk about and changed the work culture. Now, this is very pertinent, and I would, without any ado, I would first up want to invite our very learned panel chair, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege, it's my pleasure. I'm delighted, excited, and ignited to be really welcoming Vishalli Dongrie, the partner and head organization people leadership transformation from KPMG, with a beautiful round of cheer. And Vishalli, ladies and gentlemen, I must tell you, she's been such a diligent chair. She took a while. As soon as I declared the lunch, she was sitting here, sort of doing her research and familiarizing with our panelists and basically our fireside chat speakers. So thank you, Vishalli, for all the energy that you bring onto the table and the experience. Thank you. I'm going to invite, because this session is going to be a firecracker, really, can we please welcome the Vice President of Woxsen University. Please welcome Dr. Raul Villamarin Rodriguez. With a beautiful round of cheer, everybody. You're energized and all of you are good to cheer. Hi, Dr. Raul. Good to be greeting you on stage. Let's also have Manoj Shikarkhane, the Chief Human Resource Officer from LTIMindtree. Hi, Manoj. Very, very warm welcome to you as well. And Vishalli, I am handing over the talking baton to you. Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a topic of interest to most of you all. Everyone probably has a view. Everyone has a side. And I'm sure this fire chat is going to be equally engaging and enlightening at the same time. So what we have decided, 3 of us, is that while we have a discussion, we'll spend some quick 10-15 minutes, if possible, to even interact with you all, just to take your views, because it's so close to heart for all the employers as well as the employees. So before we begin, let me just maybe, when I was preparing for this fire chat on moonlighting, it's one of the hottest topic. Every conference is having this discussion on moonlighting. Where did this exactly start, and where exactly the roots are? What are the causes? All of that, I was trying to do a research and realized that almost when 2.5 years back, when COVID hit us, we went through a lot of changes. All of us, we started on a very level playing field. All organizations, even employees, started on a level playing field. There was nothing which we were prepared for. All of us were on the same level. Then there are organizations which made faster changes, quicker changes, more changes aligned to the employee and the culture and the experience they wanted to give. So organizations went through a lot of changes in their operating model. And because of these workforce and workplace changes, new ways of working, which we call it, hybrid is a term being differently interpreted by different organizations. But all of this had a massive effect on the employees as well as the employers. The new ways of changing, the reshaping of the work, as we say, had a massive impact on both the employees and the employers. There were various components and variables which were looked at. These way of life or way of work brought a lot of opportunities, but also challenges. Now, because the way we were shaped or reshaped, our workforce and workplace went through a transformation. Now, there are few elements which were really focused on, and I'm going to call out 3 or 4, and I think they are very directly linked to why probably there is moonlighting today, specifically in India. It's not a new phenomenon. We'll talk about it. Culture being the most important one. Culture played a very critical variable which disturbed or was on the minds of the organizational board, CEOs, even the employees. Because today, till yesterday, your employees were there within your office space, and today they are not. Now, how do you take cultures to the home? How do you engage and give the same experience which you probably would have otherwise wanted to give when they are in your sitting with you on site? There is also a second component which was really focused on was the productivity and performance part. Productivity and performance really was on the top of the list of all the boards and the CEO, and cost optimization being one of the biggest one. Now, that also played a lot of kind of subtle, unconscious reflections for employees, because the way in which the performance and productivity was measured was changing than what it was. And the third and the most important factor, which probably contributed most to the moonlighting per se, is that this time, 2.5 years, employee had their own journeys to cover. There were reflections. They wanted to take up hobbies. And we are the youngest country in the world. And there was a lot of restlessness in the younger generation where employees wanted to upskill their skills, wanted to take heterogeneous roles and opportunities. All of this probably, and many more reasons, financial support being one of them, led to moonlighting. Is moonlighting a new phenomenon? Technically, no. The US Censor Board published, I think, 6 years back on an article on moonlighting. Moonlighting is a very common phenomenon in the United States and some of the European countries. Germany, for example, DW is their broadcast. If you Google, it's one of the best broadcasts of Germany. They published in 2020 that moonlighting, or what they that time called is a second job. 3 million employees, young employees in Germany had already taken a second job in 2020. And this came to India because we are, one, very, very young as a nation. Second, our sectors which we focus on, which contributes to our GDP, has the opportunity and possibility due to hybrid and new ways of working to get into moonlighting. Now, what this discussion is going to be today, I'm going to just place the structure of the discussion. I have very senior, insightful, knowledgeable people, but also with a lot of experience and research already been done in this area. experience and research, I would say. So we will leverage that. So the structure which we'll do is, first, Dr. Raul has done massive research in various areas. You would have Googled him, if, in fact. And he's also done a lot of research on moonlighting. So first, we will understand what exactly is moonlighting, what's the concept of moonlighting, and how he, from his research point of view, would want to synthesize and interpret moonlighting for us. And then what we will do is, we will divide our section from employee perspective, what moonlighting is, employer perspective, what moonlighting is, and last but not the least, before we leave this platform, we would want to just brainstorm on few things. Instead of just saying good, bad, ugly, what are some of the organizations which need to do to tackle moonlighting? So I'm going to pause here. I'm also a consultant. Even if I'm a moderator, I love to talk. But I think I should take the opportunity of these experts here and take their views. So Doctor, really keen to understand, the last time when I met Professor Raul was in another conference, and I was very impressed by the research and the knowledge he has in this subject, and apart from that, other areas also. So let's take this opportunity to just hear from you more about your point of view and your research on moonlighting.
Thank you very much, Vishalli. I'm audible to you? Great. Now, a bit of a disclaimer. I don't intend to be polite, neither diplomatic. He has, both of them have big corporations behind the scenes to regulate them. I'm an academician, so I can pretty much say whatever I like. That is the beauty of academia. Now, jokes aside on this front, we are just discussing earlier, and being observing what actually moonlighting, you think moonlighting is, which is about having a second job, full-time. Not really. It's pretty much doing anything that is outside your full-time employment, which is not informed to your company openly. Secretly, you can do whatever you like. Now, this is what is the definition. I'm not saying I may or may not agree, and research shows you agree or you don't disagree to it. By the way, how much time do I have? So I don't extend too much.
So 5 minutes to...
Oh, that's too much time. I'll suffice. By the way, the timer is grown, so it has to be changed.
4 minutes left, it says.
Yeah, it has to be changed. FYI. Anyway, now, coming back to the moonlighting part, you know the definitions. He has extensively spoken about it. You already read about it. Now let's scrap that and focus on the reality. How many of you are Marvel or DC fans, superhero movies fans? I'm sure some of you have come across it. Come on. Let us not hide it. If not Marvel, how many of you have watched Scarface or maybe The Godfather, for example? Classics, right? Those are the anti-hero movies, anti-hero, like Venom, like Black Adam by Dwayne Johnson, like Scarface. Think of moonlighting as the anti-hero to society and the companies. A sort of virtual element, which is actually a byproduct of our own creation. COVID happened, and you can see through data, moonlighting has become an enemy to companies, an ally to employees, a sort of trophy wife to governments of some form. And during COVID, let us be realistic, employers had a blast. They cut salaries, they terminated people, they did whatnot. So there was a period of readjustment for the employees. And later, the employees understood that it's time to give back. Now, that way to give back is through encouraging other income. You have a CHRO here. I'm not sure whether Manoj does serve or not on advisory boards of other companies or not. I do serve in advisory boards of other universities globally, and I do get paid for it, but I do disclose it to my university also, that I'm getting paid for it. So I'm going to do it anyway, but I'm telling you I'm getting paid. So I'm not hiding it from them. But generally, top managers do hide it, and they don't disclose it. That is also technically, as per their definition, moonlighting. Now, if you look at it, and this is criticizing the employees, those who actually do moonlighting. Why do employees want to do moonlighting? Money, everybody loves money, rest assured. Now, be careful with that, because moonlighting is going to generate instant gratification. And I see many people here who are in the age range of 20 to 35, approximately, even 40. Let's do it. You all have been exposed to now Meta, earlier Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and blah, blah, blah. Constant likes, share, comments, repost, and go on. Go on releasing dopamine day in, day out. So your little heart with your little IQ feels very engrounded around the world. That is called instant gratification. You want the reward immediately. That is why moonlighting is also rewarding for you, because other employees will reward you, you will get additional recognition. They will give you a tap in the back. You have done a good job, good boy, good girl. You have done great in life. But be careful. When you exceed drug abuse, and this is like a drug, if you know the consequences of consuming cocaine releases dopamine, moonlighting, consider it the cocaine of workplace, for example, it also releases dopamine. And when you exceed that, there is a period of withdrawal. And when there is withdrawal, that leads to depressive traits. So, like I said in the last conference, I'll repeat again, moonlighting, over a long period of time, extended, leads to short-term gratification and long-term depressive traits. Short-term gratification, long-term depressive traits, which means it's not sustainable, neither for the employers, obvious reasons, nor for the employees. And with this, I think, Manoj, I've done enough, no? You can kick in now.
So interesting to know that Professor had movie characters as variables in his research. So thank you. I think this was very insightful. And the last one is really, I had not read it in the previous research, the impact of moonlighting on the employee well-being and mental state and health. This is quite an interesting one, and I'm sure we'll have to wait and see how it impacts our Indian workforce as a whole. Manoj, I think you're in that sector which is being asked questions, even judged, also taking sides, and a lot of activity around moonlighting. Really keen to know what, according to you, would be the right definition from a pragmatic point of view. What would you say to us in terms of what moonlighting means to us on a real ground level?
Okay, so thanks, Vishalli. You can hear me, right? So my definition of moonlighting is very simple. I think that if anyone is doing any side hustle over and above a full-time job, that is moonlighting to me. Now, that side hustle could be a full-time job itself, okay, or it could be a part-time job, okay. But that's, according to me, is moonlighting. So it's a very simple definition. And yes, I mean, there are people who will do it secretly, and that's the reason we are calling it as moonlighting.
Right. Do you want to add to the definition of moonlighting? Would you want to?
More?
Yeah. A little more in terms of the corporate side of it. Would you want to add anything? Or we can go to the next question.
You want me to?
Why not? Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. See, corporates over the last 40 years, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Corporates over the last 40 years have been pretty naughty. They have misbehaved with employees quite a bit, on the premise that we have benefited them quite largely. No offense, not talking about any of your corporations yet. So that is not the case. But yeah, it has happened. So what the definition that Manoj has raised is on paper correct, but there are a lot of if and buts, exceptions, depending on the context, on the country. So there's not much more to add that I can do diplomatically at the moment.
Okay, fair enough. I'm a little confused. I think we just started. There is time's up, it says, so I'm a little confused. I think we can carry on for 10 more minutes, right? Okay, okay. So we've just started, but anyway, from an employee perspective and from an employer perspective, how would you look at moonlighting? Because we've been looking from, corporates are looking from the lens of an employer. But from an employee perspective, what would you say?
I think there are 3 or 4 broad drivers for employees to do moonlighting. The first one is, I think, the desire to make money, as much money as possible, by exploiting the imbalance between the demand and supply equations in the talent market. That's, according to me, is one of the most critical driver. Second is, there are lots of employees who want to sharpen their skills, who want to acquire new skills, and they look for opportunities where they will be able to utilize their skills. So that becomes another driver for moonlighting. The third is something internal. There's a lack of engagement, okay, with the larger organization, with the first employer. And that forces this employee to look out for other options for engagement, and the person ends up, in moonlighting. Also, I think, you mentioned about hobbies, right, Vishalli? So I think there is also a desire to earn out on your hobbies, okay? And that also is one part of moonlighting. So, these are, I think these are, 3 or 4 kind of drivers for the employees to get into moonlighting. From the employer's perspective, I would say there are 3, 4 broad risks in this entire space. The first and the foremost risk is conflict of interest, okay? If you have an employee who is working for your competitor, or if you have an employee who's working for a competitive client through the other company, okay, then it clearly leads to conflict of interest. That's the one biggest risk. The second risk is the entire, the confidentiality of the intellectual property and the data, particularly in the technology sector, okay? That can get breached, and that becomes a very, very significant risk. And last but not the least, and you touched upon that, Vishalli, is about the employee well-being, okay? Somewhere you start compromising on your fitness, on your mental health, your well-being. So it has to some extent, negative impact. Dr. Raul, you talked about the instant gratification and, as a short-term benefit, but the long-term, you lose out. So I completely agree, there is some toll that finally employees, take on their fitness. So these are some of the risks, I think, from the employer's perspective.
Yeah, I think very well covered. And what you talked about, the confidentiality, is one of the key reasons why most of the corporate are trying to make a stringent policy around that. You would want to add anything around the employee perspective on moonlighting, if from your experience, anything which you would like to add?
Well, if you cycle back to what I said earlier, whatever Manoj mentioned is all correct, making more profit, trying to diversify portfolio, diversify income. But there is, if you look at the cognitive psychological capabilities of employees globally, there is an underlying subconscious bias in which you may not admit it, and your company, you may think companies may not have mistreated you during the COVID pandemic or during or after, but there is something inside you which wants to give back. You may not feel it consciously, you may not be thinking it constantly throughout, day in, day out, but somewhere, somehow, you also feel a bit, as an employee I'm talking about, like a pawn in the system. And, well, you are, so there's nothing bad about it, but you also have that feeling of wanting to fight back. Because you have to admit, since 2020 till very recently, the market was chaotic. It was almost like a joke. It never happened in our recent history. So that giving back feeling is pretty much dominant. So we cannot forget that. It's never discussed because, well, It doesn't really matter to the profitability point of view, but it's there as humans, is there, which we tend to ignore.
Right. I think you all cannot see this, but my clock is really doing very random things. First it said 5 minutes overtime. Now it's saying 10 minutes left and 5 minutes left. So what I'll do is, as we discussed, we would want to take your views because really it's very important. But let me just synthesize what has been discussed. I've made my notes in terms of what exactly, why probably there are certain challenges and why policies are getting created. And the reason for moonlighting is becoming a kind of a concern. One, as Manoj also mentioned, the first and foremost is the non-compete and conflict of interest. If I'm working for an organization, say for example, I'm a partner with KPMG, obviously I cannot take up anything with EY if there is a conflict of interest. Then the second one is most critical is the data leakage, cybersecurity, and data privacy. This is the second reason why moonlighting is not being considered as a very healthy one for corporates. Third, there are professions which are have price-sensitive information. And having those price-sensitive information is also a reason why policies are being created. Legitimacy and also collaboration tools. Microsoft and all of these tools today have linkage with different offices, and having those collaborative tools and having moonlighting, going into the moonlighting aspects will probably have another hindrance. And one very, very critical aspect, which is very, very relevant and has been having a financial impact, is the impact of return on investment. If I have invested and I am giving you a compensation, there is an impact on return on my investment. It could be due to a side hustle for a hobby. It could be a moonlighting for a financial reason. But if there is a return on investment impact, then organizations are also objecting to it. What organizations are also doing to solve this problem, what organizations are doing is they are segmenting their workforce into different categories of work. There are categories which are impacting to the value chain and the financials of the organization, and those roles and those segmentation of workforce cannot be allowed to do moonlighting. But the organization, the segmentation of work, which is flexible, which is not so much of a threat to a ROI or financial linkage or data privacy, those roles are being identified by organizations where the moonlighting policy is a little not so strict for them. So policies are being created on both sides. Reflections are being done, or policies are being created in a manner that you engage and have the good employee experience for them. At the same time, they also do a fulfillment from a hobbies as well as financial point of view. So I'll pause here, and maybe I have 3 more minutes left. Very, very keen to just take up 1 or 2 questions from the audience, and they can be addressed to Manoj or Doctor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This question is for Dr. Raul. I recently come across a term called as career cushioning. Hello. I recently come across a term, career cushioning. How similar or dissimilar you find it with respect to moonlighting?
Question is to me?
Yes.
What did you understand by that?
Career cushioning is a way employee is trying to prepare himself in case of an eventual layoff.
How is that called colloquially? What is the colloquial term for that?
They are calling it career cushioning.
No, that is what they're calling it.
Yes.
What is that you call it?
Backup plan.
Come on, you can do better. What is it called?
Sorry.
No? Nothing? There's a wrong perception about panels. You think we are going to give answers, you will listen. No, I'm asking you the question.
No, for me, it's a backup plan. And for me as an employee, it's a backup plan in case I get layoff for certain reasons that are beyond my control. I need to support my family.
Can I take that, if that's all right? Manoj, do you want to take it? Yeah. What his question is...
Understood.
Yeah.
Look, my view is that, in the technology sector, right, where the technology changes are happening at such a rapid pace, one has to be constantly on their toes to sharpen their skills, reskill, upskill, cross-skill, okay? This has become a necessity now, okay? In the technology sector, if you look at the last maybe 15 or 20 years journey, it has always been, the technology reskilling is always under pressure. But what is happening today, is that the entire hype cycle has become shorter, and there are multiple hype cycles are running in parallel. So because of that, there is continuous pressure, and there has to be continuous pressure to constantly upgrade your skills. So, it's not just layoff, it is making yourself relevant, stay relevant for the new projects, new business models that are coming out in the market day in, day out, even with your own customer. So this is something absolutely crucial, critical, and one has to be constantly thinking about this. That's what I think.
Any other question? We'll make sure that we don't ask you to answer that question which you ask.
You don't ask back?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
that's either way is fine. Question is also welcome. Am I audible to you?
Yes.
Awesome. So,
and would you like to just give your name?
I am Anand from Accenture, so a company similar to Mindtree in that sense, industry-wise. The question is fairly simple, that with Moonlighting coming about, and we know gig economy has been at least rising since the past few years. The magnitude, it varies differently. But with this gig economy reality, Moonlighting, etc., do you see changes in employee contracts? Are employees demanding for more flexibility? Are employers willing to see contracts more flexibly? Are we seeing more examples of that? Have you seen that? Curious about it.
So yes, definitely I see that. And, employees are expecting some kind of a flexibility in the contracts so that they can get into some gig activity, okay? So that is one part of it. The second part is, something that I'm seeing, a movement that has started. Many of the technology companies have started setting up their own gig platform, okay? I can definitely relate this to some of the activities that we have started doing in LTIMindtree. So companies are in the process of setting up an internal gig platform, making it available to all their internal employees, okay, which they can leverage to contribute, to solve some client problem, to sharpen their skills, okay, to learn new skills and contribute, okay. And in the process, they get rewarded also, okay. It's a good, handsome reward that is given to them. So this is a classic movement that at least it's at a very initial stage. If you look at the S-curve, it's at a very initial stage, but it's a movement that has definitely started. And I think it is going to solve, to some extent, the problem at the intersection of this gig economy and the moonlighting feature which is coming across, okay? It's a good way to solve this problem, I feel.
Yeah. So there are contracts getting reshaped, but there are different categories of contract getting also been done for different segment of employees. The beautiful lady told me one last question I can take. So one last question. Yes, please.
My name is Prashant, and I have a statement to make, actually. See, good old times, we always seen LIC agents and a lot of our people who had a job actually being an LIC agent, right? So at that level, there was no problem. At a senior level, people are sitting under directors of different companies. At that level also, there is no problem. Then are we making too much of it when the middle management level is actually doing moonlighting? And the fundamental reason for moonlighting, or whatever you can call it, attrition, moonlighting, is the amount of trust that is there in the organization. So instead of trying to put Band-Aid,
absolutely,
why don't we address the fundamental reason of addressing trust in organizations?
Right. So, Manoj,
Look,
he's really...
Prashant, I think, there are two types of moonlighting, okay, if I have to articulate. One is ethical moonlighting. Second is unethical moonlighting, okay? Unethical moonlighting is somebody is taking a full-time, employment over and above the first employment that the person has, okay? It is unethical. Somebody is working for a direct competitor or a competing client. It is unethical. Somebody is sharing the IP, intellectual property, data, okay? It is unethical. Okay, so that is, according to me, that is unethical moonlighting. Okay, and there are lots of ethical moonlighting, right? I mean, one can, while having a full-time job, one can think of spending, let's say, a couple of hours every day on something. It could be, conducting some training courses on technical analysis in share trading. What's wrong in that? Okay, somebody is having a teaching job on coding skills or mathematics or some science or some musical instrument. What's wrong in that? Okay, there's nothing wrong in that. I would categorize that as ethical moonlighting. Okay, but I think, as quickly as possible, if the organizations create a clear distinction between ethical and non-ethical moonlighting, I think the problem will get solved as we move forward. There's a lot of hype, a lot of, talking is going on around it, but, very quickly people have to, organizations have to take a position on what they think is ethical, what they think is non-ethical.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting topic, and everyone has, as I said, has some perspective and view, and both I think needs to be looked at from a clinical lens. I just want to say the last thing, policies are going to be central. It's very critical that we respect the organizations which we work for. If it allows us to do it, we should absolutely go for the hobbies and the passion and make financial, some bit of extra financial. Otherwise, it will be like after some day, we will find the logic of a raw agent taking up some assignment, saying that it is moonlighting and it is fine to do it. No, it's not. There are certain lines which we need to draw, and we need to respect that. Thank you so much. I know it's been lunchtime, after lunchtime, and I hope we've not let you down. And we wish you best of luck and for the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.